When things get tough, most people assume something has gone wrong. They think difficulty is a sign of abandonment, a sign that the road is closed, a sign that the heavens have turned silent. But what if the very thing you call tough is the same thing God is using to shape you, sharpen you, strengthen you, and set you apart? Let me speak directly to the heart that walked in today carrying weight. Weight nobody sees, questions nobody asks, struggles nobody understands. You may feel like you're standing in a place where the lights are dim, the doors are locked, and the path forward looks impossible. But listen carefully, this moment is not your ending. This moment is your turning. And before this message ends, you're going to discover the reason why the attack increased right before the blessing, why the tears came right before the testimony, and why the opposition intensified right before the opportunity. Stay with me, because if you walk away now, you might miss the very truth that would have unlocked your breakthrough. You see, tough moments reveal what easy moments hide. When life is smooth, you don't notice the strength inside you. When everything is comfortable, you never learn to lean on God. Pressure exposes purpose. And some of the greatest victories in history were born out of the darkest battles. Maybe you're carrying a delay, something you've prayed for that hasn't come yet, a door that hasn't opened, a prayer that hasn't been answered. You've asked, why is this taking so long? But delay is not denial. Delay is preparation. Delay is protection. Delay is timing aligning with destiny. If God gave you everything when you asked for it, you'd walk into blessings you weren't ready to carry. But when He matures you, molds you, and equips you, then the blessing doesn't break you, it builds you. And perhaps today you feel like you're at a breaking point. Life has pressed in on every side. Responsibilities have multiplied. Fear whispers that you're not enough. But hear me, your breaking point can become God's breakthrough point. Every hero of faith stood at a place where quitting looked easier than believing. But the moment they held on just a little longer was the moment heaven moved. Storms don't come to destroy you, they come to redirect you. Sometimes God allows the wind to push you out of places you were never meant to stay. Sometimes He lets the waves rise so you'll stop trusting in the boat and start trusting in the one who walks on water. And when things get tough, faith becomes more than a word, it becomes a lifeline. Faith grows fastest when comfort is stripped away. Faith becomes real when nothing else is enough. But the most powerful truth is this: you are not alone. Even when nothing seems to be changing, God is working behind the scenes. When you see no progress, He is rearranging what you cannot see. When you feel forgotten, He is preparing a chapter you never imagined. So don't quit, don't surrender. Don't let discouragement write your story. The tough place you're standing in right now may be the very place where God is about to reveal His greatest work in your life. Stay until the last page of the story, because that's where the victory is written. When I look into your life, into the struggle you're facing, the pressure you're carrying, I can almost hear your heart saying, why does it have to be this hard? And I want to speak directly to that silent question. Tough seasons don't come to expose your weakness. They come to expose your strength. They reveal what easy seasons hide, because when life feels smooth, when every door opens and every prayer is answered instantly, you never truly learn what God planted inside you. But the moment life shifts, the moment comfort is removed, the moment you step into a season where the weight increases and the clarity decreases, suddenly everything inside you is tested. Your faith is tested. Your endurance is tested. Your trust is tested. And what rises to the surface in those moments is not your failure. It's the potential that comfort kept covered. There are treasures in you that only trouble can uncover. There is courage in you that only conflict can awaken. There is resilience in you that only adversity can demand. You never know how strong your anchor is until the storm hits. You never know how deep your roots are until the wind howls. You never know how real your faith is until the ground beneath you shakes. Some of you are walking through a season you didn't ask for. Maybe you're facing pressure at home, uncertainty in your job, battles in your thoughts, or questions about your future. You're doing everything you can to hold it together, and still it feels like the world is falling apart. But listen closely, this isn't punishment. This isn't abandonment. This is revelation. God is revealing a strength inside you that easy seasons never require. You see, when life is effortless, you glide. But when life gets hard, you grow. When everything feels perfect, you coast. But when everything feels heavy, you rise. Tough seasons bring out a version of you that you didn't know existed, a version refined by pressure and strengthened by fire. And I know you may be thinking, but why does it have to be now? Why this season? Why this battle? Because there are some qualities, patience, endurance, spiritual maturity, that only develop when life stretches you beyond what's comfortable. God will never waste your pain, but He will use it to pull out of you what ease could never produce. Think of a diamond. It is born under pressure. Gold is purified in fire. A seed breaks before it grows, and the same spiritual law applies to you. What feels like breaking is often birthing. What feels like pressure is often shaping. What feels like shaking is often strengthening. The tough season you are walking through right now is revealing layers of courage, depth, and faith that were always inside you, waiting for a moment like this to rise. So if you feel stretched, pressed, challenged, don't assume it means you're losing. It may mean you're finally becoming who you were created to be. When I look into your life, I see someone who feels hidden, overlooked, unnoticed. And you've been asking yourself, why am I stuck in this quiet place? Why does it feel like no one sees what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to become? Let me speak to that place in your soul right now. God shapes your strength in the shadows, not the spotlight. The spotlight is where people celebrate you, but the shadows are where God develops you. There is something holy about the hidden places. Something sacred about the seasons where no one applauds you, no one praises you, no one recognizes your effort, and yet God is doing His deepest work. Because it's in those private, quiet, unseen moments that He molds your character, sharpens your faith, and strengthens your foundation. What He builds in the shadows is what sustains you in the spotlight. Some of you are frustrated because you feel like the world has passed you by. You watch others succeed, others rise, others move ahead, and you're thinking, Lord, when is it my turn? But you don't realize that the most powerful work God does is the work no one sees. Before He trusts you with visibility, He prepares you with invisibility. Before He brings you to a platform, He builds you in a place of preparation. If God gave you exposure before you had strength, the weight of the spotlight would crush you. If He gave you influence before He shaped your integrity, the influence would break you. If He gave you elevation before He taught you humility, the height would destroy you. So instead, He takes you into the shadows, not to punish you, but to protect you. In the shadows, there is no noise. In the shadows, there is no distraction. In the shadows, there is no competition. And that is where God whispers the things you could never hear in the middle of applause. The shadows are the classroom of destiny. They are the training ground of purpose. They are the workshop where God chisels away your fear, strengthens your resolve, deepens your dependence, and prepares you for the places you haven't reached yet. Think of every person used powerfully in Scripture. Every one of them was shaped in obscurity before being used in public. The greatest victories were birthed in the quiet places. The deepest anointing was developed in solitude. The strongest warriors were formed far away from the crowds. And you are no different. You may feel forgotten, but you're being formed. You may feel hidden, but you're being held. You may feel unseen, but you're being shaped. What God is building in the dark will be revealed in the light, not because you pushed for it, not because you demanded it, but because you were ready for it. So if you're in a season where it feels like nothing is happening, don't misinterpret it. Something is happening, something powerful. God is strengthening you in the shadows so that when the spotlight comes, you will not just shine, you will stand. And as God strengthens you in those shadows, there's another truth you must hold close to your heart. Delay is not denial. Timing is divine. So many people mistake God's silence for God's absence and His timing for His rejection. But if you could see what He sees, if you could understand what He's arranging behind the scenes, you'd realize that every delay has purpose woven into it. There are moments in your life when you pray with everything inside you and heaven seems to stand still. You ask for clarity, but the fog remains. You ask for breakthrough, but the walls don't fall. You ask for direction, but the path stays dim. And the temptation in those moments is to believe God is withholding something from you. But hear me, God's timing is never late, never early, always exact, always intentional. Some blessings need maturity before they arrive. Some prayers need alignment before they manifest. Some breakthroughs require a foundation that can hold them. And if God gave you what you're praying for before it's time, the very thing meant to bless you could end up breaking you. So in His wisdom, He waits. And while you're waiting, He's working. There is a purpose to the pause. There is a reason for the holding pattern. There is a divine strategy behind every delay, because God doesn't just prepare the blessing, He prepares you for the blessing. He shapes your character so you can carry what He's about to give. He strengthens your faith so the blessing doesn't become a distraction. He cultivates humility so the elevation doesn't become your downfall. Think about what happens when you plant a seed. Days pass with no sign of movement. Weeks go by, and it still looks like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, roots are spreading, depth is forming, strength is building. And the deeper the roots, the taller the tree can stand. That's what God is doing with you. You don't see movement because He's building depth. You don't see progress because He's building roots. And roots take time. And this is where the connection becomes powerful. The shadows shape your strength, but the delay strengthens your trust. In the shadows, God develops you. In the delay, He prepares you. One reveals your character, the other refines your dependence. And when you understand both, you stop fighting the season you're in and start trusting the one who holds the season. You're not being ignored. You're not being overlooked. You're not being denied. You're being aligned with something greater than what you asked for. The timing you're uncomfortable with is the timing heaven ordained for your protection and your future. So don't interpret God's delay as abandonment. Interpret it as preparation. Interpret it as divine timing working for your good in ways you can't see yet. Because when the moment arrives, when the door opens, when the breakthrough comes, when the answer unfolds, you'll look back and realize the delay was never a denial. It was God making sure you were ready. And when God makes sure you are ready, that is often the very moment when the pressure intensifies, the battle grows heavier, and the struggle seems to hit its peak. That's not coincidence, that's spiritual reality. Because your breaking point can become your breakthrough point. The very place where you feel like you're running out is often the place where God steps in. I want you to think about this carefully. Breakthroughs rarely happen in comfort. They happen at the edge, at the limit, at the moment where your strength feels drained and your hope feels thin. Breakthrough doesn't come when everything is smooth. It comes when everything is strained. And some of you are standing in that exact place right now. You're carrying more than you thought you could handle. You're fighting battles you never expected to face. You're holding on by what feels like a thread. And yet, this is where heaven leans closest. Because the breaking point is not a place of defeat, it's a place of surrender. It's the place where you stop relying on your own strength and start relying on God's power. It's the moment where your ability ends and His ability begins. And that is where breakthroughs are born. You see, the enemy wants you to believe that your breaking point means you've failed, that you're weak, that you're done. But what the enemy calls breaking, God often calls birthing. What the enemy calls collapse, God calls construction. What the enemy calls the end, God calls the turning point. Sometimes pressure builds not to crush you, but to push something out of you, something stronger, deeper, more resilient than the version of you that walked into this season. Think of how a seed breaks before it grows. It must crack open, split, and surrender its shell before it can rise into something living. The breaking isn't the end of the seed. It's the only pathway to its purpose. And the same is true for you. There are parts of you that God cannot bring to life until certain things break off. Fear, doubt, pride, reliance on your own understanding. Those things must shatter before transformation can begin. And this is why your trial feels so intense right now, because you're closer to transformation than you realize. You're closer to breakthrough than you know. The pressure increased because something is shifting. The spiritual atmosphere around you is changing. What felt like the moment you'd lose everything may become the moment God releases everything. This is where the connection to the previous truth becomes powerful. The delay prepared you, but the breaking point positions you. The delay strengthened your trust, but the breaking strengthens your dependence. And when trust and dependence collide, heaven moves. So when you feel like you've reached the end of yourself, don't panic, don't run, don't give up. You might be standing at the exact doorway God has planned for your breakthrough. And what feels like breaking may be the very thing that opens it. And what feels like breaking may be the very thing that opens it. Because sometimes God has to let the storm rise around you to move you into the place He intended for you all along. Storms do not come to destroy you. Storms come to redirect you. And if you've been feeling the wind increase, the waves grow higher, the pressure intensify, it might be because God is shifting your direction, not shutting down your destiny. You see, if life remained calm, if the waters stayed still, if everything stayed predictable, many of us would choose comfort over calling. We would cling to the familiar, even if God was calling us to something far greater. Sometimes the only way He can move us is by shaking the ground we're standing on. He stirs the waves not to drown you, but to detach you from places you've outgrown. Some of you have been asking, why am I facing this storm? Why did everything suddenly shift? But what if the storm didn't come to take something from you? What if it came to take you somewhere? What if the frustrations you're experiencing, the closed doors you're facing, the sudden changes you didn't expect are all part of God steering your life in a new direction you wouldn't have chosen but desperately need? Storms expose what you've been depending on. They reveal what was never strong enough to hold you. They tear away the temporary so God can anchor you to the eternal. And those storms feel chaotic. They are often the clearest signs that God is moving. If you ever watch a ship in the harbor, the waves may be gentle, but the ship never moves. It stays tied, anchored, motionless. But when the tide rises, when the wind blows, when the waters swell, suddenly the ship begins to shift. It's the storm that moves what stillness never will. And that's exactly what God is doing in your life. He is moving you by stirring the waters you've been anchored to for too long. And here's where the continuity becomes remarkable. Your breaking point positions you for breakthrough, but the storm positions you for movement. The breaking revealed you couldn't stay where you were. The storm ensures you don't. One prepares your heart, the other prepares your direction. That's why some relationships ended suddenly. That's why certain opportunities closed unexpectedly. That's why things you once depended upon no longer feel stable. The storm didn't come to crush you. It came to carry you. It came to push you toward a purpose you would have never stepped into on your own. And if the waves feel strong, it's because the destination is significant. If the wind feels harsh, it's because the shift is necessary. God often uses storms to place you exactly where still water never could. So don't fear the waves. Don't curse the wind. They may be the very instruments guiding you into the next chapter of your destiny.